Welcome to today's BB at 9 session. We're going to be covering what to consider in managing your digital business risk. And today we have our speaker, Michelle Govender. Michelle is a professional engineer and a certified information security manager. She is appointed as a cybersecurity subject matter expert in the CIGRE World Bank African Initiative, which aims to expand knowledge on the African continent. Her work experience includes power utility cybersecurity strategy, culture transformation, cyber risk management, and cyber resilience. So today she's going to be talking to us a little bit around digital business risk and what we should consider while our businesses are moving into this digital world. So Michelle, a warm welcome, and I'll hand over to you.
Hello, everyone. And thank you very much, Vicky, for the awesome introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to share some insight into managing your digital business risk. I can imagine, depending on your digital business maturity, being confident in making decisions around managing your business digital risk may be quite a daunting task right now. My mission today is to empower you with a few considerations to enable you to make more informed decisions in managing your digital business risk. As Vicky mentioned, feel free to send through questions you may have even after the session. My contact details will be revealed later. So, within the context of this presentation, let's look at risk as being defined as the effect of uncertainty on business objectives. Digital risk is therefore the effect of uncertainty on business objectives caused by digital technology adoption. Uncertainty may be brought on by pursuing rewards, such as faster communication through mobile and computing, multiple revenue collection streams, such as cashless payments, faster processing of employee benefits, and remote working, etc. In pursuit of these rewards, which in most cases result in reduction of operational inefficiencies, exposure to cyber threat and opportunities is inevitable. Therefore, managing your digital risk means evaluating the uncertainty caused by both threats and opportunities. By the mere fact that everyone in your business is likely using a smartphone means that your business is already managing your exposure to digital risk. As we use these devices to transact personal and business communications, access to social media, access to business records such as email and client information, as well as accessing the World Wide Web. So before we dive straight in, let's go ahead and understand what we're currently doing. I'm about to launch our second poll for today, where we aim to understand how we classify digital risk. Are we looking at it purely as a technology risk, or we're looking at it as an enterprise-wide or strategic risk as well? So go ahead and answer the poll. I see a lot of us are looking at it as strategic risk. That's great news. Wow, okay, strategic risk is definitely the way we're going. Okay, so with most of our votes in, let's go ahead and end the poll now. So it's quite motivating to see that a lot of us are looking at digital risk as an enterprise-wide or strategic risk. We're definitely on the right path. And going on to our presentation, we'll see why. Vicky, sorry, can you just please move to the next slide? Thank you very much. Applying systems thinking. Let's look at what digital risk impacts other business risk areas. While adopting new systems and technologies in your business, consider the effect of uncertainty on other strategic risk areas, such as your supply chain, your people, as well as your brand. Let's unpack a few questions your business may answer and provide you insight in pursuit of digital opportunities. Consider your supplier's geographic location. One may argue that the geography of the vendor doesn't matter, as we can receive support from anywhere in the world now. This is true, contingent on the major telecoms infrastructure, commonly known as the CCOM cable, between us and the world is operational. It is useful to inquire with various divisional heads on how they are managing technology service providers. During this time, we are fortunate to be able to leverage the opportunity to remote manage infrastructure using sensor devices such as IP cameras and building management systems. These devices are often connected to the internet. This integration works well to improve situational awareness and assists us with remote management and maintenance. Something to look out for here is the device's call to home capability. These devices are often set up to call home for automatic software upgrades, where a lot of the time, home is China. So the question is, what can be accessed? And if accessed, what can someone do with this information? As a new way of working in systems usability, being well communicated to ensure easier adoption by staff, people-centric systems integration is often overlooked. The change management required when adopting new technologies is usually an afterthought. This leads to major uncertainty in the way people carry out their work. Depending on the digital culture maturity, this could mean increase or decrease in productivity. Measuring the impact on the workforce may be useful in determining your digital risk exposure to your business. This is an opportunity to identify the organization's learning needs and help prepare your business for the future. It is also useful to gain sight of how these systems or solutions fit into your current and future business. How will it support your business growth and revenue streams? What does your business map to your systems architecture look like? A lot of business leaders I speak to tell me about latency issues they only identify later on with core technology solutions that no longer meet their requirements. One of the key mistakes we make is failure to map out our systems to our revenue streams and business strategies. Where does the information flow? Depending on the size of the organization, in some cases, we duplicate functionality because we lack the big picture view. Understanding this view is a primary step in reducing your exposure to operational risk. Your brand. Your brand and reputation may be one of the most non-tangible assets we have to manage. Uncertainty as we expand our digital footprint on social media and online may be something only felt over time. Measuring the impact on your brand as you leverage this opportunity is important for strategic growth and customer engagement. So, if you haven't already, grab a cup of coffee. I'm about to share a story. One morning, some time ago, a friend of mine, Stephanie, a secretary to a CEO of a large corporate, received a text message from what seemed to be her boss, Mike. The text read, "Hello, Stephanie. Please send through the following information to my new broker. He requires a copy of my ID, a 3-month bank statement, and my proof of address. Forward my information to his email address, steven@riskconsulting.co.za. I am currently on the golf course with an important client. Please do not disturb me for the next 3 hours at least. Mike." Stephanie went ahead and forwarded the information as requested. Later that day, after his golf match, her boss comes by the office. Stephanie confirms with him that she sent through his information as requested. Mike looks at her and asks, "What information? I was in the course, but I did not send you a text." Stephanie became extremely stressed out and showed Mike the text. The number was the same as his. However, he did not send the text. His number had been spoofed. Mike was victim to information theft, possible identity theft, and cell phone caller ID spoofing. So why do you as a leader in your organization need to secure yourself? Hackers may steal your identity to authorize business transactions on your behalf. Depending on your access to business systems, this may mean fraud. Cell phone caller ID spoofing is a service that allows the caller to masquerade as someone else. The caller may make a call or send a text message that appears to be from a phone number of their choosing. In this case, Mike's number was spoofed. So what are some of the protective measures that you can put in place to secure yourself and your business? Create awareness. Awareness creation is often overlooked in cybersecurity as measures that yield high rewards, but often are low input. It's useful to train people close to you to double check before disclosing sensitive information and to be suspicious about requests that seem urgent. So what to manage, what to consider in managing your cyber threat exposure? Now that we have uncovered how you as an executive may be exposed, let's consider what you may ask your business to prepare your organization against such threat. As a cybersecurity professional, my aim is to reduce business exposure to cyber threat while in pursuit of digital opportunity. How is personal information about our employees, customers, and suppliers treated? What controls do we have in place to protect this information from information leakage? This is important because the legal implications may be severe and very public. Cybersecurity requirements vary depending on the industry you are in. It's useful to assess what the impact should your customer or employee information be stolen or misused. You are more likely to be covered if the answer from your organization is that your critical information is secured in transit and at rest. Also useful is to gauge employee awareness on the risks of loss or stolen personal, customer, suppliers, and employee information. We will see later in this presentation why risk of stolen credentials, for example, can be extremely harmful to both yourself as well as your organization. Which third parties have access to our business information and systems? What controls do they have in place to protect these systems and information? And do we periodically assess the effectiveness of these controls? This is important because many breaches are caused by third-party vulnerabilities. As a result, the strength of an organization's cyber resilience depends on the weakest link in the supply chain. Software as a service, which is usually software paid for monthly or annually, is commonly procured, especially in times like we face right now. Examples of software as a service may include our Microsoft Office 365 subscriptions, Google Drive and apps, customer management systems such as Salesforce, accounting software packages such as QuickBooks, and what we're using right now, video conferencing facilities such as Zoom. Other useful questions to ask in evaluating your software as a service suppliers include: what are the terms and conditions of the service? Does the terms of use and privacy terms and conditions meet your business standards? What is their flexibility with adapting to the needs of your organization? I often have conversations with leaders that are quite frustrated by being locked into a technology vendor, which results in limited opportunity to be innovative and creative with technology solutions. What does the service level agreement with your technology vendor look like? We often easily click a button that says, do you accept our terms and conditions? But do we take the time to actually read what that means for our organization? Does it meet our business operations dynamic needs? And what is the maintenance and support terms and conditions? It would be useful to have oversight of reviewing third-party contracts and connectivity. Excuse me. Third-party system requirements and their control standards. Access should be restricted to what they need to know to deliver on their service to you only. So, if all else fails, prepare to respond and recover. Do we have an incident response plan for addressing the loss of our own or customers' intellectual property and systems? How regularly are these plans tested? And do we have recovery plans should we be victims of an attack? This is important because customers want to be engaged by leadership following a breach. Depending on the impact, this could mean large reputation damage, and in some cases, loss in investor and customer confidence. How you deal with the incident during and after will determine the knock on your share price and brand. Legal must be prepared to deal with the legal implications, while communications handles the press. It's helpful to test these response procedures to reduce anxiety and panic when faced with an attack. Periodic testing, including senior leadership participation, is absolutely crucial to minimize the impact and fallout. The aim is to ensure all participants have the tools and resources they need to address an attack. So while cybersecurity is usually treated as a technology problem, we have seen the impact and the effect on strategic objectives, such as brand, operations, as well as our people. So let's understand where we are with open and transparent cybersecurity conversation as leaders in our organization. So I'm about to share with you a poll to better understand communication amongst yourself as well as your ExCo team. The CEO encourages open access and communication between and among the board of directors, external sources, and management about emerging cyber threats. So how transparent are we in our conversations? We often overlook this as technology risk or cyber threat is usually a technical discussion. But what we're trying to change, both at a leadership level as well as an organization-wide culture, is that everybody is part of the conversation and actively managing risk exposure. Wow, okay, so it's very encouraging to see that a lot of us have open and transparent communication at senior executive level and especially at director level. So I'm just going to allow for the poll to be open for about 20 more seconds. Okay, it's extremely encouraging to see that a lot of us are having open and transparent conversations amongst ourselves. So the next question would be, are we open and transparent with our teams and staffs and allowing the necessary conversation to take place? So while cybersecurity is usually a discrete subject, it is important as leaders to encourage open conversations, which I'm very encouraged to see that a lot of us are doing already, regarding threat amongst ourselves as board, but as well as our organization. With business sustainability in focus, the board and ExCo are likely to pick up emerging threats before the rest of the business does. To bring it home, I'm about to share with you a video that shows us why password reuse is one of the biggest threats our business as well as us and our family face. It's definitely worth investing some time in educating your staff why this is so important.
You're about to see what a password reuse attack looks like. This attack uses an email address password combination to check which other sites can be accessed using the same credentials. The attacker is then able to access other accounts using the legitimate email and password they have now identified. Hackers use tools, code written in script format, like this to test email addresses and passwords on websites they pre-program. This code is easily accessible online for free. Someone with the right motivation and stolen or leaked email password combination can easily orchestrate attacks and steal people's identities. Here we are checking for the email address emailabustest0562@gmail.com. For the purpose of this video, we have intentionally duplicated passwords on 2 other sites. The script then checks if this email password combination is used to access Facebook, LinkedIn, and Amazon. As you see, the password was duplicated on LinkedIn and Amazon. If this user had their credit card details stored on Amazon, the attacker would have easily been able to transact on the account.
Well, I'll just pause there and give you a moment to digest that. In 2 minutes, we were able to unlock access to accounts that had reused the same password and email combination. It's clearly evident that it's extremely easy to orchestrate such an attack. A lot of us use and duplicate our passwords because it's the easy thing to do. But what else can we do? Well, one, we can definitely use a password manager to manage our passwords. To get more access or insight into how you could do this, you're welcome to navigate to cybersecleaders.co.za. The link to a guide to help you manage passwords better can be found there. The link will also be shared on the chat. You can also implement multi-factor authentication on your business systems as well as your personal important accounts to protect your business and its customers as well as yourself. So in managing your digital risk, let's consider 1, understanding your digital footprint personally and in business is an important step to understanding your context and your risk exposure. 2, managing your cyber threat exposure through supplier exposure is one of the things that is often overlooked and needs to be considered to reduce your vulnerability. 3, design cybersecurity around people, where the objective is people-centric security. Design cybersecurity to enable business and include it as part of business strategy. But as we have already seen, a lot of us are treating technology risk or digital risk as a strategic risk, which is very, very reassuring. We must remember that our goal as leaders is to lead cybersecure business. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Michelle. We'll move to our Q&A session now. So if anybody does have questions, you can pose them in the Q&A, or alternatively, if you like to raise your hand, if you look at your control function at the bottom, if you raise your hand, I will allow you to speak and actually voice your question. So please raise hands now. Michelle, there's 2 questions at the moment, or 1 question on the Q&A. I don't know if you want to answer those in the meantime.
Okay, sure. So from Dennis, how does the organization address the issue of multiple passwords across different systems and regular password resets? Thank you for your question, Dennis. The password management guide is definitely a good place to start. And to answer you off the bat now, password management tools like 1Pass, for example, is very useful to manage different complex passwords with one password designed for the password management tool itself. It's easier to remember one versus all. I see a question here from Andro. Do you recommend the use of password storing applications, example, LastPass for personal and business use, since this has an additional risk if not managed properly? Absolutely, Andro. I think with anything that we use in life, understanding how to use it properly reduces our vulnerability to attack. Similarly with tools such as 1Pass. However, it's proven to be a lot more effective, especially against vulnerabilities such as password reuse attacks. Calvin, there's a reputable service for checking this. Have I been pawned? Absolutely, Calvin. I use that frequently when doing risk analysis on user behavior, just to enable my teams or the business to be able to find out if they have had leaked credentials. Pranesh asks, how secure are password generators? So Pranesh, you know, I love this question about how secure is something, because how long is a piece of string, right? Whenever asked that question, I always come back to the context of, so how are you treating your password manager? Are you using it according to its design objectives? So a lot of us, for example, a simple example would be when we buy new tech, we take it out of the box and we tinker. We want to figure out, so how does this work, without actually referring to the manual. When it comes to security, I will advise everyone to look at the manual to find out what are the controls that are inherently designed in the specific solution. And that goes for business applications as well. Mahube, I hope that I pronounced your name correctly. Software development team are sharing source code using free open tools such as GitHub, because many companies were caught off guard by COVID-19. Absolutely. So GitHub, so the password reuse attack that you've seen earlier, there is source code on all sorts of platforms similar to GitHub. So a lot of open source code is accessible via these platforms, and that's okay if security was enabled in the development operations lifecycle of the software and solutions that were procured. From Dorothy, our targets randomly picked or known to the attackers. So that depends on your context, Dorothy. So it's in our practice to look at our threat landscape from a business perspective, and that's no different for cyber threat. Usually people with the right motivation and capability would be the people that you need to look out for. In most cases, attackers are looking for financial reward. So starting there and analyzing your revenue streams and processes as well as systems is a good place to start. Luvuyo, what's the best valuation method for return on investment on cybersecurity investment, given the ever-growing cybersecurity risks? Thank you so much for that question, Luvuyo. I'm often asked this, and we face it at investment committees as well. The answer is to look at your risk exposure. So in traditional cyber insurance industry, we calculate value at risk. There is no difference in this particular context. Some guiding principles to help you out off the bat is looking at your business risk appetite and tolerance. Depending on the impact of certain threats and vulnerabilities that you are assessing against, you can then design how much you're willing to spend on control measures and how much are you willing to transfer to an insurer. I hope that answers your question. From Christopher Allen, how does GDPR and POPI impact SA companies on data security? It appears it could be quite onerous. How do you assess this? Starting with your customer, Christopher, understand what are their expectations, and then also understand what is the impact to your brand and reputation. What are you willing to tolerate, and what are you willing to take on as an appetite for you as an organization? Unpacking the requirements against your context is a very good place to start. And getting legal on board to understand what could be the implications is also very, very useful to understand how to deal with the risk. Nanda, at a board and executive level, what training or awareness can be done to strategically manage cyber threat? Nanda, it's quite difficult to answer this question, mostly because understanding the context of the board and understanding what business the board is actually managing is key. For example, if you're a technology company where your entire value system to your customer is driven by technology, then a little bit more than fundamental awareness and training is required at board level. However, if you are, for example, in a retail sector with very little technology to support your business operations, then basic level understanding of awareness would be preferential at that, for that context. I hope that answers your question. So there's a question from an anonymous attendee. What are the examples of systems to transfer information securely? Is Mimecast effective, or PDF packages? Okay, so anonymous, like I've mentioned earlier, it's quite difficult to say, a preference on a technology solution for cybersecurity, mostly because the context is unknown. What we do, though, to help us make these decisions is to look at what is the priority on the systems or information that we are willing or need to protect. And from there, decide the priority order. For example, if confidentiality is extremely high on your priority list, based on the impact to your brand and other risk areas in your organization, then putting in effective measures such as encryption while in transit as well as at rest is extremely important, for example. So off the bat, I wouldn't suggest that a one solution fits all is going to work in this context.
Michelle, I've heard that Gmail is not the best account to use to actually share, because often people have a Gmail account and you have a work email. And I've heard before that, sending information to Gmail's account is not the securest platform because of the access the actual Gmail accounts can have to your information.
Yes, well, for business information, I wouldn't advise it because, well, firstly, it's an offshore vendor, which means that there's very little control in terms of your contract management of that supplier and the impact thereof. For personal accounts as well, we're moving towards now personalizing or creating personalized email addresses. If you are using, creating accounts for generic stuff, then Gmail surely will work. But for business information, I would not advise it at all. Boitumelo, how do we ensure password management security does not result in unnecessary business interruptions and low TAT? I'm not sure what TAT stands for, but let me answer the first part, Boitumelo. If we focus on enabling business using security, then that would take care of itself. there is no right way of managing passwords, complete right way, where you have 100% reduction in your risk exposure. If someone with the right motivation and capability wants to hack your account, they will do it. So our job is to ensure that we minimize our vulnerability exposure and do whatever we can to make it as hard as possible for an attacker to crack our passwords or to gain access to our accounts. From Bridget, how do you manage brand or reputation risk with social media so uncontrollable? Bridget, this is why organization-wide approach to managing your brand and your digital footprint is extremely important. One way that I found successful is that you bring your people on board, helping them understand what their digital footprint looks like, and helping them understand the impact to your organization via their footprint is absolutely crucial in the risk discussion. Once you understand this and your organization understands it as a whole, you can collectively reduce your exposure. I hope that gives you some insight. So what is the risk with Apple iOS storing passwords on cloud using Touch ID to autofill? Lerato, to be quite honest with you, I'm not a subject matter expert with that, so I would rather not comment. I just want to say, though, that look at it from this perspective, that password reuse is something that is common and extremely uncontrollable right now. So look at what are other interventions that you can put in place to reduce, for example, this vulnerability. Demakatso, with the rise of virtual meetings, what measures should be put in place to avoid interception of meetings? So Demakatso, understand your video conferencing security controls. I think that is one of the key things that we often overlook. So if you're a host of a meeting, for example, you should understand and know all of the controls that are available to you from that solution provider. If you deal with extremely highly confidential information, investigate what controls the various video conferencing options have that you can then exploit depending on your need. So it's a need-by-need analysis, which is definitely driven by your business objective and driven by your need for confidentiality. I hope that provides some insight.
If I can come in here, for example, with Zoom, most of us are using Zoom and Zoom meetings. They have upgraded to version 5. So one of the key things is to actually upgrade because they've upgraded their security measures there. Also make sure you're sending unique links to your meeting attendees instead of sending a reusable link. That's one way of doing it. And then use your meeting room functionality. So if you're not having obviously a webinar where there's 100 people, it might not be the best use practically. But in terms of a normal meeting, use your meeting room option, and then the host can actually has to grant each person access to the meeting. And that functionality will then allow you to make sure who you're allowing in is somebody who actually should be part of the meeting. And if somebody doesn't disclose their name, for example, you don't have to let them in. So those are current ways that you can look at actually securing your current meetings now if you're using Zoom, for example.
If you're using Zoom, yes. But colleagues, there's many different options, which is why understanding the security controls available for the solution that you have procured is extremely important. Thank you for that, Vicky. Ingo, if you do get hacked or compromised, what recourse do you have? Your recovery, Ingo. So always back up. You know, it's an age-old tale. If you have information on a digital platform, back up, back up, back up. This cannot be emphasized more at this stage in our lives. Backup and recovery is one of the most important ways to circumvent the impact should you be attacked. It is advisable, though, that we do not plan to be, to strategize to not plan to be attacked. So a lot of people come to me and say, okay, so why do I need to protect if I have backup, if I'm able to back up? The knock-on effect to your business in terms of your brand impact is in some cases extremely difficult to recover from. Once it is out in the media that your customers or your stakeholders have been compromised through you as a business, it shows that leadership has not taken the necessary accountability to ensure that their customers are protected and that their business is sustainable. Shadrach, do we have any antivirus software that can assist in reducing the cyber attack crisis? Shadrach, there's a lot of anti-malware software out there. It's going to be extremely useful to look at your vendors that predominantly supply your business and figure out which is the best one that would work well with your systems. I refrain from prescribing specific technology solutions, especially with anti-malware, because from my experience, I've seen that depending on the systems that you have currently deployed, certain anti-malware actually slows down your systems. So it's useful to actually do an analysis with your current solution providers, technology providers, to find out what is the best fit for your context. Osman, if my organization collects personal information from another organization, should I be POPIA compliant? Absolutely. Think about it this way. If you entrust your information with solution providers such as Apple and Google, imagine if they did not take your information seriously and the information that you had on there was from about somebody else, like your wife or your important clients. They would put your clients or personal, shall I say, family member at risk because they didn't take their job seriously. So it's all about what is our responsibility as technology providers, as information holders, both not just to ourselves and our customers, but to society as a whole.
And the POPI Act does apply to both natural and juristic personal information. So,
thank you, Vicky. Nanda, again. During COVID-19, businesses need to move to electronic signatures rather than paper-based printed signature. Any comments? Well, it's inevitable, Nanda. In my perspective, it's coming, it's here already, and it enables business. Secure digital signatures helps us do business faster as well as optimally. So my suggestion there is to look at what providers that you have available and how does it meet your business needs, and how can this technology or solution enable your business? How do you overcome challenges on ensuring that the environment is secure, but ease of usability of a solution? Thank you for this, Osman. I always enjoy this question, mostly because there's so many different answers to it. One way that I found works is to bring in security at the beginning of a solution deployment. To figure out at the beginning, what are the controls that will enable us to derive the benefit from this particular solution. We often make the mistake of including security discussions at the end after we've procured a solution. We also make the mistake of including our users at the end. And this exponentially exposes us to additional risk that we may not see at the beginning. So my suggestion there would be to have the discussion of security as enablement and not as a deterrent going forward.
Great, thank you, Michelle. I think that's the last of the questions that were raised this morning. No one was feeling brave enough to raise their hands to ask a live question. So thank you everybody for attending today's session, and thank you for those questions. Michelle, I'm sure if they've got any further questions, they can email you directly on your email address that's on the screen now as well. Do you want to tell them about the password management guide that you've created that's accessible on this website?
Yes, thank you for that, Vicky. If you guys want additional information or just a place that you could go and access resources to give you further insights, you're welcome to navigate to cybersecleaders.co.za, where the mission of the site is to provide insights and empower people and decision makers to be able to make cybersecure decisions.
Perfect. I think what we've learned today is, I mean, if with general information technology, we need to understand what's our information assets, understand what the business architecture is as well. You know, what are the actual systems we need before we make choices. Also making sure the systems and software we're getting helps a number of business needs than just one. And also understanding the platforms that we're using as well. And do we understand what the security control options are? Is there somebody managing that? And are we making sure we are securing whatever we're doing digitally in the most effective and efficient manner, both from a cost perspective and what's relevant to the information that we're sharing?
Absolutely, Vicky.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you everyone for attending today's session. Please do complete our satisfaction survey, either using the QR code on your screen now, or when the session ends, you will see a pop-up that will ask you to click continue to access the survey itself. Once again, we will see you all next week, same time. Have a great week ahead. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.